I don't know if you're a big betting guy, Alex, but Miami's sitting at 9.5. And what really caught my eye, if you go beyond the surface of just the 9.5 win total, because of course you see the number, then you go to the schedule, regardless of the team, and then you start to figure out, okay, is this a number I can take advantage of? But I did a video, let's say, on a number of these win totals throughout the country, the Big Ten in particular, and there was an obvious lean from Vegas. On every team in the Big Ten, for example, there was a lean to say, okay, the number might be 9.5, but Vegas is very much thinking they're going to be over because they're paying out all the money on the other side. So what I found interesting about Miami's number at 9.5 is that Florida State and Clemson are also at 9.5. So that was the top number for the ACC. And the payout for all three is almost exactly the same, which is telling me that Vegas is expecting that to be a down to the wire finish between those three, which I'm surprised.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense the why, because you look at Mario, he's had success wherever he's gone, and we improved on the 5-7 last year, and we improved the roster, improved the talent, especially at the most important position, quarterback, week schedule. So it makes that our line makes sense. Florida State, they lost a lot of production. I think they're one of the teams with the least amount of returning production. And then when you look at their transfer portal, yeah, they've brought in some guys with talent. Like, I'm not going to deny that, but it is a lot of unproven guys that were backups elsewhere, like places at Alabama and stuff like that. But they have a good coach in Mike Norvell. And again, it's the ACC, so it'll be a favorable schedule. So that one makes sense. And Clemson really seemed to turn things around in the second half of the season. And again, we know their history. We know that up until this year, they'd won 10-plus games for almost a decade. You know, Dabo Swinney's still a good coach, even though he refuses to use the transfer portal. And I think that's going to bite him in the ass, but whatever. But yeah, I mean, all those lines make sense. And Clemson plays Florida State. Miami plays Florida State. So if there was someone I would take the under on in that situation, and again, this is no like shot, and people are going to say this is my Miami bias or whatever, it would probably be Florida State, just because of they don't have as much talent returning. I don't think DJ Ugalele is honestly that good of a quarterback either.
No, he's not. He's capable. I'll put him in the capable range.
He won't. I don't think he'll lose a game for you egregiously, but he's definitely not going to win it for you. He's not Jordan Travis. He'll win a game for you. I've seen Jordan Travis win games for you. I was at the Florida State game in 2022 when I was visiting a buddy of mine, and he got us into that game, and I literally watched him live win that game for Florida State. If you had DJU out there, they lose that game. And it's plain and simple. Jordan Travis did it a million times where he would just win them those games. But if there was someone I would take there, it would probably be Florida State. And I could be wrong. I had them going 10-2 last year. They ran the table, went 13-0. You don't, like I said last time I was on here, you still have to play the games. Right now it's all just guesses and up in the air, and we don't even know if these are the final rosters or anything.
I got a stat for you, Alex, that may make you think I don't know if you make season predictions outside of Miami, if you look at the whole country or the ACC or what you do there, but this may make you think a little bit, because it hit me about 5 or 6 years ago when I'm looking at Athlons and Street and Smiths and all these preseason publications. I thought, you know what? And I went back to the previous year because I used to keep them every year. And I went back 2 or 3 years and I started looking at all these predictions, and it hit me. These magazines, for as good as they are with information, they're not necessarily bad at making predictions, but they're extremely conservative, meaning their top 5 is always, and I get it with the top 5 because the top 5 is almost always Alabama, Ohio State, Georgia, etc. But after that, I thought, okay, I'm going to start to keep track. Well, you don't need to keep track. You can go through every year. You could do this back before the beginning of time. And I thought, let's see how much does college football, how much do these teams change? I know the very elite stay the same all the time, but after that, is there much change in college football? Because there doesn't seem like there is. So I thought, okay, what's a good benchmark? And I picked 3 games, meaning if you're 6-6 one year and you elevate to 9-3, that's a considerable change. Or if you're 6-6, you go to 3-9. So I picked just arbitrarily 3 games as being significant, a 3-game change from one season to one season. And I started to go through each season for like 5 or 6 years, and I counted how many teams in the Power 5 have that kind of change from year to year. And then when we would do call-in shows, I would ask fans just to get their barometer and say, how many out of the 70 Power 5 teams, and it was like 65 a couple of years ago, how many do you think from one year to the next have a 3-game swing, at least a 3-game swing from year to year? And the guess was always 6, 7, maybe 10. So what would be your guess on how many teams in the Power 5 typically have that drastic of a change from one year to the next?
20.
Yeah, that's a good guess. And maybe I phrased it in such a way that led you to that number to a certain extent, but that's a really good guess.
I was originally around like 15.
It's usually about 18 to 22. Last year was 25. 25 out of 70 teams in the Power 5 had that much of a drastic change from one season to the next. So that's happening like clockwork. So when I throw out some win totals that are possible, people are like, well, you're crazy. You're crazy. That's never going to happen. They're never going to be able to win that many games. Well, somebody is, because it's going to happen with somebody. So of course, with Miami, that would have to be a 10-2 season. But that's what it would have to be for them. Now, with Florida State going 12-0 in the regular season, they could drop to 9-3, certainly.
Yeah, I mean, I had us finishing this year 8-4.
I think I did too.
And I would have been dead on with that if we could knee the ball, but whatever. Or if the ACC could get a review right because Don Chaney's knee was down, but that's in the past. We'll let it die. But yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say I try to be conservative, but I still try to be realistic. I did go balls to the wall with 2022. I said we were going to go 10-2 because I thought Tyler Van Dyke was like a Heisman candidate, and I looked at that schedule, but obviously we went 5-7. Again, you just have to play the games. It is fun to make predictions, but right now, if I were to look at it, I've seen the schedule. Florida's not going to be that good. A lot of people are weirdly saying that USF is a trap game, which, like, yeah, I think they'll be a good group of 5 team, but like, come on.
By the way, you bring up USF. I just saw a 247 sports writer, a guy, Brad Crawford, who I've had on many times, listed USF as a dark horse playoff contender.
Yeah, I've seen people say that. Which, hey, if they make it, good for them. But we should handle USF. Like, come on, I don't know why that's.
Which again, it's a group of 5, so it doesn't necessarily mean that they're a legitimate playoff team. Liberty, made the playoff last year, or they
would have.
Sorry, they would have made the playoff, yes, in a 12 team, and they got obliterated by Oregon in the.
Quick change of topic. What is your opinion on the 12-team playoff?
So during this entire playoff era, my initial response to the 4-team was, okay, we've got 5 conferences. Why do we only have 4 teams? So there's going to have to be an argument and a issue every year. So I wasn't big on the 4 teams, but I just thought, well, at least it affords 2 more teams that are in the discussion that are worthy of competing for a championship spot. But I didn't like the way it was formulated. Okay, my other gripe with the 14 playoff was always, what do you do with a group of 5? Either include them formally or exclude them formally. Do one of two things, either
Yeah.
include them or exclude them. Don't patronize them by making them think that they're truly considered with Cincinnati one year, but it had to be the
Yeah.
stars had to align.
Certain teams had to lose. They had to beat Notre Dame. They had to go undefeated.
Yeah, just think about the irony of Cincinnati scheduling Notre Dame, which at the time that that game was scheduled, I looked it up, it was 10 years in advance, like every other
Yeah.
non-conference game. There was no thought to, oh, this game's going to decide a playoff spot. It was just arbitrarily scheduled and just happened to coincidentally be the exact game that Cincinnati needed to play to make the playoff. Otherwise, these group of five teams have just been patronized. I don't think
Yeah.
there's any question that well, the other ironic thing about this, Alex, as well, is now that we're moving to a 12-team playoff, the group of five was not given a official spot, and now they are, and the group of five is weaker than it's ever been. The best group of five programs have left the group of five.
Yeah.
If you go through the playoff era, Houston was at one point the best group of five. Then it was UCF. Then it was Cincinnati. It's been BYU. They're all gone. And now SMU, who just won the American Conference and could have been that New Year's Six team, they've gone into the ACC. So at the same time that the group of five is lessening in quality, it's being given a position. So people just have to be okay with this should be the 11 best teams in the country, roughly within a one or two positions, and then like the 40th or 50th best team in the country, and that's what it's going to be. So I'm okay with that because I think we've at least gotten to a place where nobody can complain about missing the playoffs. Sure, there's going to be an argument, and shoot, I posted a video this week looking at what a 12 team and what a 14 team, since that's been the discussion as well, what a 14 team playoff would have looked like the last 10 years. And there are log jams of teams at 9-3. So there are going to be tough decisions to be made, but you can't sit there and say, we're 9-3, we got ripped off. Well, maybe you did. Maybe you did have a better resume than the team that got selected, but you can't reasonably say, hey, we got ripped off. You had an opportunity and you lost 2 or 3 football games.
Yeah, I think 12 is too much. I'm one of those people where I'm romantic about the fact that the regular season means so much.
Yeah.
You look at other sports where it's like, just to use an example with two of my local teams, like I'm a Heat and a Panthers fan, right? The Heat over the past 5 years in the playoffs have been one of the most successful teams with getting to the finals twice, getting on the doorstep of the finals. And in the regular season, they just don't care that much. I mean, you literally see a guy like Jimmy Butler where he kind of coasts, and then in the playoffs, he really turns it on. So it's like a lot of Heat fans, it's like, well, watch during the playoffs. They don't care. Like, they're not going to put in the full 100%. It doesn't really matter. Hockey, the Florida Panthers right now are comfortably in a playoff spot. So every night, I see it on the ice because I watch every game. They're playing at like 50, 60, maybe 70% effort because they're already comfortably in a playoff spot. And last year they made it to the finals as an 8 seed also. So it's like it only really matters once you start playing a 7-game series. We're comfortably in a playoff spot with home ice advantage. Like, why would it matter? So what I'm not gonna like seeing is the 9-3 teams getting in. Is these late season games where it's like, it doesn't really matter too much who wins or loses because both these teams are so comfortable up the rankings, and it's a 5 versus 4 game. Like, who's really going to drop that much to drop them out of the playoff? I mean, just think of the tension of a game like 2013 Auburn versus Alabama, where it's a top 5 clash against hated rivals, and it's a game that decided who would have gone to the national championship game, who would have gone to the SEC championship game. You have Michigan versus Ohio State these last 2 years where it was a game where the winner's going to the Big Ten title game, and they're going to win because no one in the West has a shot, and they're going to the playoff. And I'm not going to say 4 was the perfect number. For me, I would say if you're going to expand it, do 6, where the top 2 teams like have a bye, the other 4 play it out, and then you move on. But I just think 12 is way too much, and it's going to be devaluing too much. And it's just going to be taking away, because you look at so many of like like a wide right, just to bring up a Miami example, those games decided national championships. And it was a regular season game. No other sport or league really has that. I mean, the NFL regular season matters, but still, like, you can lose, you can have a losing record and win your division in the NFL and make the playoffs. We've seen it multiple times happen with the Washington football team or the Seattle Seahawks. I mean, this is really the only sport that the regular season means that much.
Yeah, I don't agree or disagree with anything that you said, although there are a few other angles to it. So you brought up Ohio State and Michigan, and there's really real concern among those fan bases. And I think people that look at the entire playoff because of what you just stated, because if those two schools continue to dominate the Big Ten, and that's going to be challenged, of course, with Oregon and USC coming in.
Mm-hmm.
But still, if they do, then, and I think it gets magnified because they play the last game of the season. So if they got to turn around and play a Big Ten championship game right after they just played, and to your point, the last 3 years, not only have they been undefeated and playing for a college football playoff berth, we can even bypass the Big Ten title game, like you just said. If there was a Big Ten championship game that would have allowed both of them to play, that game would have been even more meaningless because they were both so far in front of the rest of the conference.
Yeah,
Neither one of them even had to win to get into the, like, it was like a bye week in the NFL. Like it was one of those like week 17 games in the NFL where teams like,
I genuinely believe you would have seen Jim Harbaugh been like, should we play Blake Corum this week? We're already in.
well, we got to play, and we got to play the same team next week.
It wouldn't have been like, it wouldn't have been like this year where it was Dolphins versus Bills in the last week, where it was like, that's for the division. That's what these games have
Yeah.
been these last few years, where it's like if the Bills lost, yeah, they would have played the Dolphins, but still, like, if they win, then they don't have to play the Dolphins, and they go home and they have like home field advantage up until they have to play Baltimore and all that stuff. And now you just take that away. You're just taking it away, and you're not gonna have games anymore like 2019 LSU versus Alabama, where it was like whoever wins this game is going to win the national championship, because you had guys like Jerry Jeudy, Tua battling Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, both those defenses with all the talent they had, and it was just, one of the greatest games we've seen, and now it's just going to be like, eh.
Yeah, so you're right. And then there's a possibility. And again, I think Ohio State and Michigan is the most egregious example because we know that they play every year. Like you could say the same about Georgia, Alabama, but they won't play every year in the SEC because of the way the scheduling goes.
Yeah.
But Ohio State, Michigan play. We're going to see at some point, we're going to see two teams play 3 times in a season.
Yep.
That's going to get really, I think the first time I see, and again, I'll go back to the Ohio State Michigan example, those two teams playing a Big Ten championship game, there's going to be a novelty to it. And it's going to be kind of interesting one time to see them rematch.
Yeah.
But after that, it's going to be like, this is overkill. The special quality of great matchups that you're talking about, rivalries, is going to lose it.
Because this is what's going to happen. You're going to get, in this hypothetical world, Ohio State week 15 beats Michigan. All the Ohio State fans are chirping and talking shit on Twitter. What are the Michigans going to say? We're playing next week, bro. This game didn't matter. Who cares? Who cares? Besides the fact that you notched one closer in the all-time series, or you got one ahead, because I don't know who's ahead in that all-time series. I imagine it might be Michigan. Yeah. But you notched one closer. Who cares? We're playing you next week. And guess what? We dropped to number 4. You're number 1. Even if we lose, we'll drop to number 8. We're still in the playoff. We might see you in the Natty. Who cares?
Yeah. Yeah. So I totally get everything that you're stating there. Although it could
also the fact, just one more point, that when you look,
we got you.
Okay. Yeah, I thought I froze for a second. That when you look at all these years of the playoff, it's even arguable that there were 4 teams worthy of being there. Did you catch me? Hello?
Yeah. So you said something about
that when you look at all these years of the playoff, it's even arguable that there were 4
Oh,
teams
gotcha.
worthy.
Yeah, because there are blowouts in the playoffs. Yeah.
I mean, the only years you can really think of are 2014, which is mute because Ohio State went on to win the national championship game. So there you go. And then 2017 Alabama, where they got in as a team that didn't even make the conference championship, but again, they won the national championship game. And then this year with the whole Florida State debacle, which is why I'm saying maybe if you wanted to expand, which I think 4 was good, because a lot of years there's really only 2, 3, 4 teams, 5 teams max that can really compete for a national title. This year there was 6 teams worthy of a playoff spot, but I think that even with Jordan Travis healthy, Florida State would have gotten not destroyed, but handily defeated in that first round by Michigan, because Michigan was just on a different mission this year. But yeah, I mean, I'm not a huge fan of it. I've even seen some people talk about even the BCS was better, which I don't know about all that, but I like the playoff. I thought 4 teams was the perfect number just because there was never really an excuse to go more beyond that outside of a few fan bases were crying. And then now the CFP committee gets to go, ooh, we have more important games, and that means more revenue and more money, and we get to play at more NFL stadiums. And it's just, oh my, it's just turned into, it's a sport run by people that don't actually care about college football, and they're just looking at a bottom line.
So the only pushback I'll have again concerning what games matter, and I totally get your point, totally agree. I'm right there with you on there being the elite of the elite that are like, we're 12-0. Okay, we lose this game to finish the season, or we're 11-0, whatever. We're the 1 seed, the 4 seed, whatever.
Yeah,
I get that. However, at least they've incentivized it. Conference champions get buys. So there is that incentive that you win your conference championship, you get the bye, versus losing that enormous game the last weekend of the season, finishing 11-1, and you don't make your conference championship game, or you lose the conference championship game and you're a 7 seed instead of a 1 or a 2 seed with a bye. So there is that incentive there. The other counterpoint I'll make is that while, yes, there's no question, there will be a handful of games that become basically tainted, inconsequential, or somewhat, that used to be just, this is the end of the world. This is a must-win situation. It becomes okay, both of these teams are top 5 teams. They're fine. The loser doesn't matter. There's also going to be this group of games that I would argue is going to be a lot larger pool of games that go from being insignificant to significant. Because when LSU's playing Tennessee and it's the first week of November and they're both 7-2 right now, that's just a decent game that people want to watch because it's LSU and Tennessee and they got talent, but nobody's going to the playoff. Versus now in a 12-team playoff, 7-2 versus 7-2. Okay, this becomes a big game. So there is going to be those games as well.
Yeah, but my counterpoint to that would be is the media might hype it up as significant, but there is going to be a large contingent of college football fans that are going to be like, you're saying this is significant, but it's not really, because we know team 1, 2, 3, 4 are the only real contenders.
So until you see a dark horse run.
Yeah, and even then they're gonna push these dark horses, and it's gonna be like a 9-3 Alabama team that just had a few missteps, and this underdog, scrappy Alabama team, and it's like, dude, they had the number 1 recruiting class in the country 2 years ago. They just fucked up some games. Like that's what's gonna happen. You're gonna give an out to these bigger like you're gonna see it. I already know you're gonna see it, where it's gonna be week 15, LSU versus Vanderbilt or something, and LSU's 12-0, and it's Vanderbilt, and they're like, just rest the guys. Let the backups in. It's Vanderbilt. If we lose, we drop a little bit. Okay, who cares? Like I already know you're gonna see college football teams resting. You're gonna see it, they're trying to make it the NFL light. That's what they're trying to do. And the thing that was special about college football is that the NFL at times feels so soulless and so corporate.
Yes.
But with college football, whether it's Rocky Top or the Tomahawk Chop or the Gator Chomp or the canes running out of the smoke or whatever your thing is, it was special. And the regional rivalries and all that stuff. Like in the NFL, we have 2 football teams here in Florida other than the Dolphins, and no one cares. I don't care about the Buccaneers. Like the Buccaneers won the Super Bowl, and it was like, that's cool, I guess. But if Florida State won a national title, I'd be fuming. I'd be so mad. The same that they would be if Miami won a national title. I can't imagine how you felt watching Michigan win as an Ohio State fan. Like I bet you were probably like a little, not, I wouldn't say mad, but you were like definitely salty. You were like, these sons of bitches fucking, oh my God. Now I'm gonna have to hear all summer on TV.
I'm not allowed to say that though, Alex. I got a Michigan channel and a lot of Michigan people watch it.
I'm speaking for you. I'm saying no, you do a good job of staying unbiased, but I know you were watching at home like these motherfuckers fucking. But yeah, I mean, that's just going to take so much out of it.
And to your point about the 12-team playoff, and this is one of my favorite stats about a 12-team playoff, and if a couple programs stay at the same level and it's not looking like they're going to be dropping. Ohio State last missed a 12-team playoff in 2004. It was a long time ago.
Yeah, I mean,
it's pretty much an automatic.
I mean, you run it on NCAA. Now on NCAA, you know, they have the modded game where you can mod in the 12-team playoff, and it's like I play NCAA and I mod in the 12-team playoff, and you look at it and it's like, dude, I have built up Miami to be like this absolute powerhouse. Why am I playing this random 10-3 Arizona team that I just crushed by 60 in the Fiesta Bowl? Like, come on, like what are we doing? And they think it's going to help with opt-outs and all that stuff. And yeah, I think less players will opt out, but then you also bring down the value of bowl games even more.
Yes. What's going to be interesting, and I hate to think that this could possibly happen. Think about this, Alex. Let's say you are Penn State and you're good, but maybe certain guys, agents, whomever, get in the ears of a particular player to say, you know what, you're a 9 seed. You've got to win 4 games. It's not like, boom, you're in a BCS national championship game, or you're in a college football playoff and boom, you're right there, 1 win and you're in the national championship. You got to win 4 consecutive games against a murderer's row. Do you want to beat your body up that much? I don't know that there won't be an opt-out at some point. I don't know if it's going to be next year or 5 years from now or some point where somebody says,
we already had it with the 14 playoff. Jackson Smith and Jigba last year. He didn't play in the Georgia Ohio State game, right? Am I confusing?
You are correct.
Yeah, like he opted out. And that was with the 14 playoff.
Yeah, he wasn't in the best of health that entire back half of the season. So, I don't know exactly where that stood. But, yeah, he apparently could have played, yes.
Yeah, and we already saw it in 2020 where you give these guys an out to declare for the NFL, they're going to take it. I mean, Greg Rousseau from Miami, which was a guy that we were like coming off 2019, and was like, he's going to be here 2020, and he's going to be lined up with Jalen Phillips and Quincy Roche and the defensive lines. Oh, he opted out before even the season. Okay.
Yeah. But 4 games, that's
it's
football.
It's okay. Yeah, you're a 9 seed. All right, you have to go on the road to the big house. You got to beat Michigan, and then you got to go play Alabama, play Georgia, and then play Florida State in the national championship game to win. You look at that and you're like, ooh, okay. Because it's not like this isn't basketball. This isn't basketball where you can have a 64-team tournament and game after game after game. Hell, even in hockey, they play 82 games in a regular season, and then it's 4 rounds of best of 7 series. And hockey's still a physically demanding sport. Imagine football.
Yeah. And the wear and tear of playing those type of opponents 4 times is probably the same as playing 7 or 8 games of playing Wake Forest and Virginia Tech or whoever during the regular season.
Yeah, and people like to make fun of the SEC, but I've said it for years. They are so smart for all these teams scheduling that one crappy FCS school in November just to give themselves a little break. It's technically not a bye week, but it's a bye week.
Yeah.
And it's a bye week in a spot where you need it.
I completely agree. I've always defended that. Not that they should be allowed to do that, but if there's no governing body, no commissioner to regulate these things, then why wouldn't you do that? They don't get penalized for it.
It's the same thing with that I was saying last time with NIL. People were talking about you paid Cam Ward and this and that, and it's like, did we do anything wrong? I'll take a shot at George right now. You got all these Florida Gator fans talking about all our players, they only left for money and this and that, blah, 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 blah. And it's like, yeah, well, they wanted the money. You weren't paying them. These other teams wanted to pay them for their services. They went elsewhere. Plus, your team's ass. They don't want to play there. No one did anything wrong. Sorry.